I'm not a man given to tall tales, never have been, but what I saw one October evening along the Chariton River has lived inside me ever since. A shadow that refused to leave. My name's Bill Hawkins. This land has carried my family's footprints for 3 generations. Just northwest of Kerrville, about 3 miles off Highway 6. My granddaddy bought these 300 acres in 1921, and we wrestled crops and cattle from it ever since. I grew up with the smell of cut hay in my lungs, the calluses on my palms from fence wire, and the kind of bone-deep knowledge of the land you only get by bleeding into its soil. That day had been long, like any other during harvest. Late October always means a race against the weather. The sun was dropping early each evening, and there was that peculiar chill in the air, the kind that doesn't just remind you of winter, but warns you it's coming. I spent most of the day up in the combine, rolling through soybeans, watching the grain tank fill and the dust hang heavy in the light. By 4:30, my oldest boy Tommy had peeled off to tend to his own place in Brashear, leaving me with the last few rows and the silence that always feels louder once the machines quit. Around 6:15, I headed out in the truck to check fences on the north pasture. The stretch runs down to Thompson Creek, and I had no end of trouble with coyotes that year. 2 calves gone already, both spring-born. Predators had always been part of life there, but 1980 was different. There was more hunger in the wild, more daring. The light was slipping fast. On the horizon, the sunset bled orange and purple into a sky that felt too wide, too empty. It was enough to see by, but not for long. I noticed the cattle first. A man who's worked with cattle all his life knows when something's wrong. These weren't restless, they were panicked. The entire herd, 30 head of Angus, had pressed themselves against the south fence as far as they could get from the creek. Their bodies trembled, their eyes rolled white, and the low, frightened moans carried across the pasture like the sound of the church organ gone sour. I killed the truck, grabbed my flashlight, and pulled down my Winchester .30-30 from the rack. Habit? Sure, but instinct too. You don't walk towards trouble unarmed when the sun's gone low. The air felt strange, heavy, not like the press of a storm, but charged, unnatural, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Then came the smell. Wet dog, foul and musky, threaded with the sweetness of rot. It clung to the back of my throat and grew thicker the closer I moved to the tree line. That's when I heard it. A growl, low and deep, that rose from the ground and into my bones. It was sound and vibration all at once, a noise that made the hairs on my arms stand straight and set my boots tingling in the dirt. I raised the flashlight and swept the beam across the trees. What I caught in the light was no coyote. The first stood upright, no less than 8 feet tall. Its shoulders stretched wider than the hood of my truck, draped in fur so dark it was nearly black, though the light picked up a silvery sheen as it shifted. Its head was that of a wolf, only more angular, more exaggerated, like nature had stressed the shape to something predatory beyond reason. Its eyes glowed amber, steady and burning, not reflecting, but alive. The hands were the worst of it, if you could call them hands at all. Long, jointed fingers that ended in claws, hooked and curved like hunting knives. And then, just beyond it, something else stepped into view. This one was larger, closer to 9 feet, with a frame so broad it dwarfed the other. Its fur was brown, thick, matted, tangled with dirt and bits of bark. Where the wolf thing looked sharp and lethal, this creature was sheer force, shoulders like slabs of stone, arms hanging low and corded with muscle. Its face was more man-like, but far from human. A wide brow ridge, deep-set eyes shadowed beneath, and a flat nose that flared as it exhaled steam into the cooling air. They saw each other, not me, and then they collided. The wolf thing struck with speed, slashing with claws that hissed through the air. The other moved slow but with crushing strength, swinging arms that could splinter trees. They crashed through my fence like it was straw, cedar posts snapping with gunshot cracks. The ground trembled beneath each impact. Their snarls and roars tore the night apart, and when one of them loosed a screech, a piercing metallic sound that didn't belong to any earthly thing, I felt my teeth ache. Trees that had stood for decades toppled as they grappled. They tore the pasture open, rolling, striking, bleeding. I'll admit it plain, fear froze me. My body acted on its own, pulling me backward, step by step, my rifle shaking in my hands. I never took my eyes off them, not until I reached the truck. I climbed in, started the engine, and drove away without once looking in the mirror. When I reached the house, I called Tommy, told him to keep his kids close, to stay inside after dark. We went back the next morning, him and me and my younger boy Dave. What we found looked like a battlefield. The fence was gone for 50 yards, posts scattered like matchsticks. The ground was torn open, gouges a foot deep in place. Branches hung broken and splintered, and there was blood, some of it dark and red, the kind you know, but some nearly black, thick, and strange, staining the wood. The tracks chilled me most of all. Some were like giant wolf prints, only stretched long, as though made by something that walked upright. Others were bare, human-shaped, but monstrous, each one 4 times the size of my boot. That was 39 years ago. I don't tell the story often, but it changed me. I don't work past dusk anymore. I rebuilt the fences with steel posts, though I know in my heart they wouldn't stop those things. I traded the .30-30 for a .30-06. I keep dogs now, German Shepherds, bred for police lines. They're brave, loyal animals, but some nights when something passes through the dark behind the fields, they don't bark, they don't growl, they whimper and crawl into their kennels. Lately, stories have been spreading again, folks in Knox County losing livestock, strange howls in Sullivan County, hunters in Howard finding claw marks on tree trunks where no bears ever roamed. My granddaughter studies environmental science at Truman State. She tells me apex predators need wide ranges, and that when territories overlap, there's conflict. Maybe that's all this is. Creatures we don't understand fighting for the land the same way men once fought over rivers and forests. But sometimes late at night, when the world is quiet and the wind carries from the direction of Thompson Creek, I still hear them, distant, violent. And I pray their war stays out there in the wild places, because I've seen what walks in the dark, and I know the rest of the world isn't ready.